Did you ever think you would make it? I feel I'm so close, I could taste sweet victory. I know this life meant for me. Yeah, why would you bet on Goliath when we got Bet David? Valuetainment, giving values contagious. This world of entrepreneurs, we get no value to haters. How they run, homie, look what I become. I'm the one.
Yes, I do agree. Listen, we finally made it happen. We have the great Tulsi Gabbard in the house. But let me first properly introduce her background so we can get into a bunch of topics here together. In 2002, at the age of 21, she was elected to Hawaii House of Representatives. That's 21 years old. In 2003, she enlisted in Hawaii's Army National Guard. She was deployed to Iraq 2004 and 5, stationed in Kuwait 2008 and 9 as an Army platoon officer, platoon leader. While a congresswoman, she served as a vice chair of DNC from 2013 to 2016. She was promoted to major in 2015. That's a big deal. She resigned to endorse, here we go, this is when it gets interesting, Bernie Sanders' campaign for 2016, Democratic presidential nomination. While in Congress, she appeared on Fox to regularly criticize and call out Barack Obama. She just wouldn't get aligned with the entire thing. So that was kind of concerning for the other side. In 2017, she was blacklisted by Azerbaijan for taking part in visit to Armenia in the disputed breakaway region of Nagorno-Karabakh, which is populated and governed by Armenians. As an Armenian, this was a big deal. She called the U.S. Senate and President Donald Trump to officially recognize the mass killing of Armenian genocide, as well as the Syrians and Greeks in 1915. 2020, she ended her presidential candidate and endorsed this guy named Joseph Biden. We'll talk about that as well. And she's been a fill-in for Tucker Carlson's show many, many times. In October 2022, she announced that she had left the Democratic Party due to foreign policy differences as well as some other social issues. But nobody knows what party she's affiliated with. Maybe she'll announce it today. Who knows? In 2022, the Security Service of Ukraine, this is a compliment actually, placed her on a list of public figures whom it alleges to promote Russian propaganda. Another lady also said that about you years ago, I think. The challenge is the following, folks. Depending on who your enemies are, this could be either deeply concerning or deeply good for you. She no longer receives Christmas cards from Clintons, and when she does, her handlers open it first before she does. Tulsi,
you know what's funny
what's
though?
That? You get Christmas cards from her? That'd be so funny.
I got a Christmas card from Vice President Kamala Harris this last Christmas.
Well, that's pretty cool.
It was like the mass-produced one, but yes. I was surprised.
Did
nonetheless.
she sign it? Was there a personal note?
It was,
anything? Now, if she wrote a personal note to you, what would that sound like?
Probably not full of aloha, I would guess.
No hearts, no hugs, no nothing like that. Okay.
So, Tulsi,
it's great to finally be here.
Are you kidding me? First of all, I feel like we've spent a lot of time together because I've watched you over the years. You're a rock star. You're amazing. You're one of the most necessary voices that we have. They get people who are trying to reason and think for themselves. People say there's another person like me out there, you being one of them. And we're grateful for that. But today, we got a lot of issues to go through with you, a lot of things that's going on today. Politics, DeSantis, yesterday, the F-16 approval of the pilots, Ukraine being trained. Are you going to give it to them? Are you not going to give it to them? We'll cover that. We'll talk about the military-industrial complex. We'll talk about Durham report and a few other things. But before doing that, question for you. If you and I were in 10th grade together, who was Tulsi Gabbard in high school? I'm curious.
Very, very shy, introvert. I'm the fourth of 5 kids. I have 3 older brothers and a younger sister. And by far amongst the kids in our family and certainly even in my circles, tomboy, did martial arts, loved surfing, hiking, sports, read voraciously, but very, very shy and an introvert. So if you and I were in high school, I probably would not have spoken to you. Not because of you.
That quiet.
I would, like, my mom would send us to go to the grocery store and buy, some bread or whatever. I would not want to speak to the clerk at the grocery store. I'd make my sister go. She is an extrovert. So I would make her.
Right?
Yeah.
April 12th. So when did it flip? When were you like, you know what? Why am I so nervous? Because I was shy as well. When did the flip happen for you?
I am. I mean, I'm. Obviously, I'm still introvert by nature. But the. So you mentioned I ran for the state house when I was 21. it was very, very hard. The hardest thing about that was going and knocking on people's doors and starting those conversations to introduce myself and really asking for the opportunity and the privilege to serve them. Every single door that I went to was a huge cause of anxiety just because of that. Where it eventually turned actually was I had served in the state house. I had deployed. I'd come back. I had served on the Honolulu City Council. It was when I was running for Congress that I just had to take some time of introspection. Just like I am pursuing this path of service that I've committed my life to, and yet there are these self kind of created hurdles of anxiety just because of that shyness. And I looked myself in the mirror and I was like, what's your problem? You got to figure this out. And really just taking that time made me realize that all of those fears and insecurities, the causes of that anxiety were actually very selfish, because I was thinking like, well, I don't want to sound stupid. What if they ask me a question I don't know the answer to, and I don't want to bother them? And the common word that came up as I was going through this was I and me. I was like, well, that's a problem, especially as I had made this decision to pursue this path of service, and so that was where things changed, where instead of walking into a room, something that would cause anxiety, and anyone who's an introvert and shy, you can probably relate, was turned around when I realized, like, stop thinking about yourself, Tulsi. Go in this room and take the opportunity to connect with other people, to share aloha with them, to smile, have a nice conversation at a bare minimum. And once I shifted my focus on in that way, it changed everything.
I love it, because when we watch you on stage and Kamala goes after you, and then you go the back and forth when Kamala and Biden were going back and forth, and then you came in and boom, and then the comments about Hillary and what she said about you, and everybody's wondering how you're going to react, and your reaction was even stronger than the way she did it. And then you see this person, you're like, this woman's got poise, strength, courage, confidence, is willing to stand up for herself. These are not qualities of somebody that's timid or shy. So it's great that transition happened to you. But the question was, you read a lot.
I think to your point on that, it is all rooted in a place of intentionally every day choosing to not put myself first, service above self. And so as attacks are coming or whatever, all of these other things that are happening, whether it was in the past or just the stuff that we're dealing with now on a daily basis, you talked about some of the things in your introduction. For me, recognizing it's not about me. So all this stuff is just like, I'm not in it for me. The attacks can roll off my shoulder and let me stay focused on my mission.
How many politicians genuinely have that mindset where it's about service to others and helping the country first, versus sort of being an egomaniac? I want to have power. I want to have notoriety.
Unfortunately, not very many, even though we hear these words very often coming from politicians, the actions tell another story. And this was one of the most disheartening things that I found when I was in Congress for 8 years, was how many people in the House and the Senate, their whole identity is centered around this title. And so when that is their identity, and I've seen this with people who've left Congress and found themselves feeling very almost worthless or irrelevant because people aren't inviting them to things anymore. People aren't asking them, hey, what's your opinion on this? And so for those who are there, you can see how they are willing to do whatever it takes to keep that position or to climb to a higher position. Because unfortunately, that's where they find their self-worth.
Is that one of the main reasons why there's no progress on term limits in Congress? Just because the people voting for it just don't want to leave?
Yeah, I think that's one motivator. It's also one of the reasons why we see this endless search and ambition for just more power and more control, because ultimately what it comes down to, it is about them rather than saying, hey, and this applies to both political parties as well, their well-being, their means of existence, rather than like, all right, guys, we have very real problems. How do we sit down and figure out how to solve these problems in a real and lasting way? And for those conversations, we're seeing some of them play out right now, or with the debt ceiling issue. But we see how these things just don't happen very often.
Tulsi, personal, your journey of going from, hey, first here military, Hawaii, then it's Bernie, then it's this, then it's Major, then it's, all this stuff.
I'm a lieutenant colonel now.
Lieutenant colonel now, really?
Yeah.
Seriously?
Yeah.
They got to update your profile.
I know.
That's a big deal to be lieutenant colonel.
I'm honored and proud to still serve.
Well, I salute you,
Thank you,
ma'am,
sir.
for being a lieutenant colonel.
What was your highest ranking, Pat?
Specialist. I crushed it.
This guy's
before.
special.
I did my 2
He's
years.
special.
I'm out.
So there's a real thing called the E4 Mafia in
Yes.
the military.
Oh, he's very familiar with that.
and
I was one of the
they
leaders.
I was
one of the
E4
senior
too
leaders.
at one time, and they cannot be underestimated.
No. But by the
Shout
way,
out to the E4 Mafia out there.
I tell you, on a leader's bulletin, specialist party better than any other title in the military. They know what to do. Okay, so going back to this, the vulnerability of going through the evolution of where you're at politically and philosophically, that's not easy to do, because in a way, we have to publicly put ourselves out there to either say, I was wrong about that belief at one point of my life, or to say, listen, I'm still of the same belief. You've changed, and just to affiliate myself with you, I can't do that anymore, because this is ridiculous. And it's you've cornered me, you put me in a bad place, but this is what I'm going to be doing moving forward. What's the journey of you evolving with your personal philosophies, whether it's foreign, as a military person, of course, that's something you have a lot of experience in, economically, as you advance in life and you're saying, okay, I'm noticing some of these policies don't make sense.
Yeah.
Socially, you're seeing what's going on with trans, Dylan Mulvaney, all these things that you're being forced to kind of have to agree with this. What's that evolution been for you politically?
Look, I think ultimately at its heart, it is about being willing to learn. I mean, really, it's that simple. The mindset and worldview and what I knew when I enlisted, after, because of 9/11, like so many people, and then going and deploying into Iraq and having one thought about what we were doing there and why. And, what I later realized was a bag full of lies that was sold to the American people that a lot of us actually believed, because we had leaders in both parties who were telling us, hey, this is true, this is necessary, this is important for America, it's important for the world. And then going there in that situation and being directly exposed to, every day, the military-industrial complex. In our camp, we were at one of the bigger camps in Iraq, and KBR Halliburton was the contractor. Every single place in our camp, from the porta potties to the little laundry connex, they hired people from Nepal and the Philippines to come and hey, you're going to do laundry for the troops. You drop off your clothes, they come back in a plastic bag. KBR Halliburton stamps on everything, on our food. Every single thing service that was provided in our camp came through KBR Halliburton. I just talked to a friend of mine who is on active duty, is deployed to Poland right now. He said, guess who is providing all the services in our camp? KBR Halliburton. We started making friends with some of the people from the Philippines who were there, and hey, how much are you getting paid? How often are you able to go home and visit your family in the Philippines? Very, very, very little pay, knowing they're charging the U.S. government, the military, astronomical amounts of money to provide these services. So just one example of many of the exploitation that occurs, especially during times of war, but also during times of peace, from the military-industrial complex. Who's making all the money? Who is being exploited? And at what cost? So, experiencing that, serving in a medical unit where every day I was confronted with the high human cost of war. Our brothers and sisters who paid the price either through injury or making that ultimate sacrifice. These experiences hugely impacted me and caused me to go deeper, to want to learn more about the foreign policy decisions that our country was making, learning more over time about the uniparty that is the war machine in Washington and the forces that be. So that's one example of many, but I guess intentionally having the humility to understand and know that I don't know everything, and to continue to learn, whether it's on foreign policy or domestic policy, and keeping at the forefront. What's most important is not me standing here and saying I'm right at all. What's most important is trying to find the right answer in that mission of serving the American people in the interests of our country.
But I think most reasonable Americans are you. So most people are going through that process as well, but they're cornered at feeling guilty if they're not loyal to a certain philosophy, or losing friends, or not being invited to parties, or what are people going to say if I post this, if I post that. So Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden, you endorsed both of these guys at one point. I like Bernie as a person. I actually believe Bernie more than I believe almost every one of the guys on the left. When I say I believe what his philosophies are, I think it's sincere. I don't think he's, of course, I'll call him out on the taxes and millionaires now, millionaires and billionaires. The moment he became a millionaire, billionaires and billionaires, so it's like, as long as you're not that. So there's a little bit of
evolution
contradiction
there.
And evolution there for him as well, yes. So for you, what appealed to you with Bernie, and then what was the situation with Joe, President Biden in 2020?
So as you mentioned, I was vice chair of the DNC as we were headed into that 2016 election. It was starting to shape up to be a direct kind of face-off between Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton. Bernie obviously shocked everybody with the massive momentum and grassroots support that he built. The establishment, Washington, believing, Hillary, she obviously is the establishment, embodies the establishment, but they didn't believe that the power of the people could harness that energy to create a real competition, but it happened. I had every intention of remaining as vice chair of the DNC and trying to do my best as a neutral officer to ensure that as we went through the primary process, that it would be fair. And truly neutral, which is the rules of the party. Very quickly under Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who was the chair of the party at the time, I started to see that was not the case at all. She was making unilateral decisions, not only without consulting us as officers of the DNC, but actually we would find out about her decisions oftentimes when they were released to the media or on social media. But seeing very blatantly how she was tilting the scales to favor Hillary Clinton and try to handicap Bernie Sanders, tried to limit his exposure to voters through the debate process, implementing a rule that said, hey, any candidate that participates in a debate that is not sanctioned by the DNC will be banned from participating in all future DNC debates.
How can they do that, though? How can she makes the rules?
Unilaterally.
We were kind of talking about that last night. And your name came up last night. We're at the cigar lounge talking. What are the disadvantages now that you've been part of it? Because you were a star amongst stars. You became a superstar where there was a time we talked about you every day on what you were doing. I'm talking politically. When a new athlete comes out in the NBA or football, you're going, look at this superstar. This guy's amazing, right? What they're doing. That was you. But then the conversation came about. She's not defending the establishment, and you need the establishment to make it. Now that you've been through this and you've been in that world, whether from the media side, individually, on the stage, establishment going up against Biden, going up against all these other guys, how much does a candidate need the backing of the establishment to stand a chance of winning, and to say you do? But if you were to go up against the establishment, these are the three things you need to stand a chance to win. Yeah. What would you say to that?
I have never had the establishment's backing, not when I ran for state office or city council, or when I ran for Congress. I was never the obvious choice from a party or an establishment standpoint. And frankly, even had some people in the Hawaii Democratic Party who were actively opposing my candidacy. And so I was shocked when a couple of weeks after I was sworn in as a member of Congress, I got a call saying, do you want to be vice chair of the DNC? Like, I had no insight into the establishment organizations. And literally my response was, I don't know. What does a vice chair of the DNC do? What are you really asking of me? But said yes, because I okay, well, here's an opportunity to try to bring about some reforms that would actually ensure the Democratic Party is truly democratic and listening and connected to the people. And perhaps a little too idealistic as I went through that, but really my eyes being opened into the fact that, well, this party has become a party of elites, serving the interests of the elites and not the interests of the people who they are supposed to be, whose cause they are supposed to be championing. And so back to your question, I resigned as vice chair of the DNC specifically because of what was going on in that 2016 primary, and specifically related to foreign policy. Bernie and I don't agree on every issue, but on foreign policy, we had a situation in 2016 where Hillary Clinton was being touted as, excuse me, the most qualified candidate ever to run for president in the history of our country. All of the talking heads on television use that line almost every single day. And yet they did not talk about what her record actually was. The stream of destruction and war and toppled regimes and failed states and dead bodies that she left in her wake. They refused to have her even answer, basic questions about that record. Not in debate stages, not in interviews. And frankly, Bernie Sanders wasn't even bringing it up that much, when in fact that was one of the biggest differences. I mean, he has a largely non-interventionist leaning foreign policy. I resigned as vice chair of the DNC and endorsed him specifically on foreign policy to maximize whatever platform I could have to shine a light on that contrast, on that difference, and expose Hillary's foreign policy record and hold her accountable to it. About can you be successful in politics without the establishment support? Yes, absolutely. Is it the easiest path? Is it the shortest path? No. But if your interest is in remaining committed to the people of this country or the people of your constituency or of your district, that's where my focus has always been. And unfortunately, we are living in a time where the establishment interest is not the interest of the people. So if you want to go play the insider politics game, the establishment game, you'll go places. It comes at a very, very high cost.
Going up against them.
It even comes at a high cost of personal compromise and a compromise of integrity if you choose to play that game. And yes, going up and challenging them is not just challenging the DNC or the Democratic Party.
Right.
It is also challenging all of their partners in the mainstream corporate media, challenging elements of the national security state that they are weaponizing for their own interests, challenging their friends and partners in big tech and social media who are very willing to do their bidding. So it is this whole kind of cabal of elitism that benefits off of having people in positions of power that they can control. And that's where, as you said, people were talking about me a lot at one point, but once they realize, oh, okay, she's not falling for the glitter and things that were dangling in front of her, and she thinks for herself, and it speaks her own mind. That's where the tables kind of started to turn, and I stopped getting invited to the parties and the stuff that I know.
Good
right?
parties. What are the? You says it comes at a cost.
Yeah.
Being purchased by the establishment. What does that mean exactly? Like in terms of your credibility?
I've just seen it. I've seen it in friends of mine, people who came in with the best of intentions and maybe throughout still maintain the best of intentions and didn't really realize, in the best sense of the word, didn't realize how, okay, well, I'll just do this in order to get this done, or I'll just do that in order to I'll compromise this or that or whatever, and not really realize that they were losing themselves in the process. And I also know those who are very blatant about it. Like, yeah, I will, in a very calculating way, do anything that is required in order to get myself to this position or this title or hold this amount of power.
Though. They're going to hold you hostage if you do that.
Exactly. And I've seen it on the House floor during votes. People being chased down. Now, if you do that, if you play that game, they've got leverage over you. Vote for this or else. If you don't support us, we're going to take away this money.
So it's a threatening environment.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So let's stay on this. So, for example, we had Whitney Webb here yesterday or 2 days ago, 3 days ago, something like that. And we had Whitney Webb here. And she wrote a couple books going up against, Epstein and a bunch of different Lex and all these guys. She's very good at what she does. And one of the questions I asked her, which has prompted a lot of discussion the last couple of days, is, so all these establishments, okay, who is establishment? Like right now, if we were to say, who's the chairman of the board of the establishment party? Of course, it's not a party. Who would you say is the chairman of the board at the top?
Hillary Clinton.
Okay, you put her ahead of Obama.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, so she is still ahead of Obama for establishment. Who do you put on the board? Like if you were to
Because
say,
you look at who was even though they were up against each other in 2008, I mean, you look at the people who populated the Obama administration, Hillary Clinton being Secretary of State, and you look at the people who are populating the Biden administration. Who's his National Security Council director? Jake Sullivan, who is Hillary Clinton's right-hand guy.
Got it. So you put her. So you don't subscribe to this mindset that Obama's really on his third term and he's running the country. That's not where you're at.
I think he is playing a very impactful role, but Hillary Clinton spent decades
still
building that Clinton machine.
So she's
that
deep.
is still very much.
Okay.
You think she still plays a role in the Biden administration?
Yes.
So
Hillary.
here's the question.
Yes.
So here's a question. So if that's the case, to go up, is the goal in order for America to be free to go up against establishment, expose them, replace them with people that are statesmen, and hold them accountable? Would you say that should be one of American voters' top goals?
It is the essential objective.
We're on the same page. So now this goes.
Can I add one little thing
Of course,
to that?
sure.
It is because you look at, and I talked a little bit about this in my talk yesterday, about when you look at the words that the founders used in our founding documents, we the people, a self-governed nation, we are the ones who have the ability to make this change. It feels hopeless at times because of how much money and power and all of these machines that exist to maintain that status quo of power. But ultimately at the ballot box, we are the ones who have the power to make the kind of change you're talking about and hold these elected leaders accountable. And they need to be people of courage who have the backbone and the strength to completely clean out the administrative state, the bureaucrats who have their own agenda, and who are very willing to either undermine the direction and interests of the people that we elect, the President of the United States, and continue to thrive off of this corrupt revolving door that exists between special interests and those who are unelected, yet who are making the kinds of changes through rules and regulations that should be done legislatively. Title IX is one example of this.
Perfect. We're going the right direction. We're on the same page there. I agree with you. But I think, the challenge then becomes the following. If you look at all the establishment, and as well as some of these institutions that have made our lives horrible since November of, 1963 till today. Let's go 63 till today, November 22nd assassination, John F. Kennedy. So I'm purely going November 1st till today. You can add FBI, CIA. You can put in there DOJ, military industrial complex. You can, Whitney talked about the big tech firms. She put IBM, but she put all the social media companies. She put Pritzker, the folks from Big Pharma, lobbyists. You said Fed, right? We went through all the, and then names,
Mainstream
Clinton,
media.
Biden. There were names from both sides, left and the right. Okay. When you think about who in the last 60 years that has had the weight to go up against these guys, you have to look at who was hated the most by those institutions and organizations and establishment. Kennedy was hated by those guys because they were on their way to want to undermine them. And another guy named Donald was, right? So obviously on two opposite sides, one guy was a Second Amendment guy in 1963, John F. Kennedy. They were NRA card members. Today, I'm not sure he would have been a Democrat today. Maybe he would have been a libertarian, independent, possibly a center-right type of a position he would have been today. But to go up against these guys that a lot of people think they're evil, okay? When you look at, we'll go into this as well with the whole ESG, DEI, CI stuff. We'll go into that afterwards. But the person to go up against the establishment, how does the average voter be able to tell the difference on who that candidate is? Because whoever has the guts and the ability and the willingness and is a true believer to do that, every institution is going to pin him as a bad guy or bad girl.
Yeah.
They're not going to market this person as a good candidate. They're going to have to do whatever they can to do character assassination. So how does the voter see between that massive character assassination and saying, but I think this is the guy or this is the gal that can do the job? How do we differentiate between the two?
People's trust in the mainstream media has radically been reduced over time. I think it's probably at a historic low at this point. People's trust in our public institutions has continued to drop. Why? Because we have been lied to and cheated, and evidence has been shown how corrupt these entities have unfortunately become. So I think, how do we know? I think the first question is, if you have, often the mainstream media, they end up parroting all of the same talking points when they're saying the very same thing about someone. Like, oh, this is the best person who's ever come along. They are going to come and save the country. Me, I'd be like, well, I don't know. I'm going to dig deeper into that person. This seems kind of suspicious. And in my case, they parrot the same talking points and accusations and baseless smears against me. I have heard from people who are saying, hey, I've heard them saying all this stuff about you. Doesn't seem right. I want to learn more. So I think identifying the messenger and being able to see through that facade of lies, or it's not a facade of lies, they are actually lies, but seeing through that facade to recognize the truth, or at least the need to dig deeper to learn more, I think is where we're moving in that direction. And I think we're also seeing evidence of this with people migrating more towards new media, podcasts like yours, shows like yours, and others who, where they can actually gain real information, and they know they're not being fed like a soundbite by soundbite, sheet of lies.
What do you think about Trump or DeSantis as a candidate?
Tell me more. What do you mean?
I mean, okay, so let's just say you are somebody that you're the Soros of the right. There isn't one, but let's just say you're the Soros of the right. The Soros of the left, he is helping these guys out in ways that if you're on the left, you have to send this guy a Valentine's Day card, it doesn't matter, Memorial Day card. He's never served, but you got to tell him thank you for your service if you're a Democrat. He's that guy, right? On the right, there's not really one there. They think they are, but they're not really there. They claim they want to make the investment. They're not going to cut the check and buy Vice and buy Time Magazine and buy New York Times or LA Times and they buy Forbes. It was just on sale somebody else. They're just not willing to put the money there. They kind of want to go live in Palm Beach, have a nice place, and be left alone and just kind of go have drinks and do whatever they want to do. It's unfortunate because they're not fighters once they make their money. The Dems are more fighters and true believers. A lot of times, Republican billionaires talk more than they actually do the fighting. So, but let's just say you are that person, okay? And you're a center-right person with a lot of money, and you have the ability to get behind a candidate that's willing to fight against the establishment. Where would you put Trump, DeSantis, or even others as a qualified candidate to go up against this task? It's going to be an ugly one. Who would you say is the most qualified to do that job?
I don't know is the honest answer. I don't know enough about all the different people who are running. Trump has obviously shown he has taken on both, all of the establishments, obviously the Democrats, the Republican Party, the media. And I think that's one reason why a lot of people are drawn to him is he says what a lot of people are thinking in some ways, even if it's not nice to hear. But is willing to kind of take on these machines that have been perceived to be too powerful to take on. And I think Ron DeSantis has done that in some ways, but I think it remains to be seen. And I think that's the beauty of this election process, is that voters will have the time and the opportunity, as they should, both for Republicans and Democrats, and with the DNC's decision to not allow Democratic voters to have that opportunity is truly offensive and disrespectful to voters.
I saw what you tweeted yesterday about the whole with RFK. Well, but what are we talking about here? And so Joe's like, well, we said the same thing in 2015. Yeah, but he was a candidate, and this is a different story because it's, Joe Biden's ticket, and he gets to choose and decide, and there's no way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I mean, it just the message that comes through there with Simone Sanders saying that, but she used to be Bernie Sanders' communications director back during the 2016 campaign, and the fact that she said, I think the beginning of that, she said, I'm trying to keep myself from laughing at Joe's question about why aren't there going to be debates, or are there going to be debates? Like, they really think it's a joke, and that's what they think.
This is Joe Scarborough?
Joe Scarborough.
Okay, gotcha.
Joe Scarborough asking the question.
Who was he asking?
He was asking.
You can just play the clip.
The Democratic side, Bobby Kennedy Jr., Doing well. He's at 19%. Hasn't really gotten that much out there. I mean, and I'm starting to hear more and more talk about him. Are we going to actually have a challenge here?
I'm trying not to laugh, Joe. There's not going to
Wait,
be.
can I stop you for a second?
Yes.
Do you know how many people said the same thing about Donald Trump in 2015 on this show?
Except I will
the
note,
same exact thing.
yes, because there was going to be a Republican primary. But I really think that the mealy-mouthed Democrats, as I like to call them, and some of my progressive friends who would like to live in a fantasy land, they need to come back to reality. And the reality is this: the sitting president of the United States of America is a Democrat that would like to run for re-election, so much so that he has declared a re-election campaign. In that case, the Democratic National Committee will not facilitate a primary process. There will be no debate stage for Bobby Kennedy, Marianne Williamson, or anyone else to stand
So we're going to
on.
have another Bobby Kennedy in an empty chair in the debate, right?
There will be no debate.
Yeah, no debate.
The Democratic National Committee administers the debates, and they're not going to set up a primary process for debates for someone to challenge the head of the Democratic Party.
So here's what I hope Bobby Kennedy does is goes to you guys, goes to Joe Rogan, goes to multiple people who have platforms and say, will you host a debate? Invite Joe Biden, invite Marianne Williamson, and let him not show up. The key word is there. She says they have to come to reality. And what is the reality? That the DNC believes that they are the arbiters of democracy. And they will decide if there's no debates, then there will be no debates. Well, guess what? There's a whole country out here that's actually interested. The fact that Bobby Kennedy is I think he's north of 20% now. He hasn't even been in a campaign for a month at this point. The fact that Joe Biden has such low approval, they're less than 30% of Democrats who even want him to run, and yet they're saying there will be no debate because of the DNC. There's a lot of folks out there who would like to hear more and learn more, and I hope that Bobby Kennedy creates that opportunity and invites Joe Biden to show up.
I think that's a brilliant idea. I think we might want to implement that strategy, Pat. Question for you, Tulsi. I mean, I think it's disgusting that they're just kind of hiding Joe Biden in a basement. It's almost sort of like a Weekend at Bernie's type of thing. They're just going to string him out there. But at the same time, if you look at the Republican primary, Trump has, in so many words, said that he probably won't even show up to the RNC debates. Do you think Trump should man up and debate DeSantis?
I don't think it's a matter of manning up. I mean, Trump just did this CNN town hall that I don't know that DeSantis would agree to do a CNN. I don't know. Maybe he would, maybe he wouldn't. But for every debate that I've seen, Trump has done very well.
No doubt.
So I don't think it's a matter of
do
manning
this
up.
debate,
But no, I mean, I think that he would probably do well, and I think the voters would appreciate being able to have candidates there on the stage. Obviously, it's up to him, and he'll make a decision, but I think it would send a strong statement.
Is it fair to say, 2016 you were Bernie, 2020 Biden, you endorsed Biden. If it were Trump, Biden again in 2024, how likely is it that you would vote for Trump this time around?
I will not be supporting Joe Biden under any circumstances. What happened in 2016 or 2020 rather at that point was, the race on the Democratic primary side had virtually been decided. And I've known Joe Biden for a long time. And I felt that the Joe Biden I knew was a good-hearted man who had the best of intentions for the country. And so I had hoped that he would listen to his better angels and provide the kind of leadership that our country needed. Unfortunately, he has proven that to be wrong. I mean, that hope unfortunately never came about. And I think obviously he is the president. He is responsible. He is accountable. The people he has surrounded himself with are more divisive, more destructive, have pushed us to the brink of World War III and nuclear war. From a domestic policy and a foreign policy standpoint, have been have had a destructive effect on our country. That I'm concerned if they were to continue and be reelected, it would take us to a place that perhaps we could not come back from, number one, and number two, before long, we would have a President Kamala Harris as Commander-in-Chief, which I and others who wear the uniform find to be scary beyond belief.
What would a Kamala Harris administration look like if she's, if Joe Biden is incapable of leading at some point, that's a concern, or if she's actually even elected duly? What do you think that administration would look like?
Well, she has, first of all, again, the most important responsibility that the president has is to serve as commander-in-chief. That is the sole job that only the president has, that Congress does not weigh in on. Presidential candidates talk a lot about education and immigration, all these other policies. Well, you can't get anything done unless you work with Congress to get them to pass legislation. The foreign policy decisions that the commander-in-chief makes are decisions that person alone makes. Kamala Harris is completely unqualified and lacks not only the knowledge and experience, but the temperament to serve in that position. And what's dangerous about that is, number one, she will be manipulated by the military-industrial complex, by people who have a lot of stars on their shoulders from the Pentagon, who would like to see us continue to be in a state of war for a number of reasons, rather than to pursue peace and diplomacy. And she would, as we've seen with others in the past, she would feel as though she needs to project strength. It's the most dangerous thing, to have a weak person feel like they need to project strength and have the U.S. military at their fingertips to do that.
If you could only vote for Joe Biden or Kamala Harris, who would have your vote?
Oh my gosh.
It's a tough one. I get it.
No, I'm not. That's like a ridiculous hypothesis.
Well, it's not that ridiculous. We're kind of in that world right now.
I would do everything
Tulsi.
possible to make sure that were not the case.
But that's not the question, though. You asked the right question a minute ago. Between the two, and she gave the answer that she won't be voting for Biden. So which means it's anything but a Biden-Kamala, because her concern is Kamala, and many people are on the same page with that. Kamala just doesn't give vibes of a VP, let alone a, commander-in-chief. That's a scary sight for her to sit there negotiating with Putin or Xi.
Yeah.
Oh my God. That's the first place I go to. I go sit there and say, who are the most top 10 biggest power players or leaders in the world? Who do you want sitting there negotiating on your behalf without you being there with cameras off?
Yeah.
I do not want her negotiating on my behalf. I just don't.
I'll just add one thing to what you said. I think it's important. I don't believe it's anybody but Joe Biden. I don't take that approach to anyone, because we have some Republicans who hold the exact same foreign policies as a Hillary Clinton or a Joe Biden. And so I think that's where it's important for us as we go through this process to be able to look at each candidate and not just go off of like, okay, Republican, good Democrat, bad Democrat, good Republican, bad. Because again, we look at the war machine, we look at permanent Washington, we see people who may look a little different, may come from different parties, may say slightly different things, but at their core, their message, they will perpetuate the same corrupt status quo.
So here's a question for you. I like to play the game. I'm with Shaq, and I ask Shaq, I say, Shaq, starting lineup, you got first draft pick, I got second. Number one, who do you pick? I got Michael. I got this. I got that. I got this. And we're putting a team together to see who wins, right? Draft pick. Give me your top 3 draft picks on presidential candidates that are the most qualified to fight against the establishment and have a fighting chance of winning or maybe making progress. Purely draft pick. Who would some of those names be for you?
I think it's too soon to tell.
That's not too soon.
It is too soon
I
to
think
tell.
you're dodging the question.
A little bit.
I think
a little bit.
But here's,
No, I am. Mostly because then somebody's going to say, well, I'm endorsing candidates for president, and I'm not prepared to do that.
Then this is what I would do. Then here's what I would
early.
do. Then forget about top 3. Don't rank them, okay? Give names. And you don't have to give them in order. Okay, you know what I'm saying? And I'm being serious with what I mean by give names. I'm not looking for an endorsement.
I know you're not, but that's how these things will be interpreted.
But if you look at it right now, like, okay, we were with DeSantis a week ago at the governor's mansion. 10, 15 of us spent 5 hours together with, himself, Casey, others, and watching to see how he is behind closed doors and, what messaging and all this stuff is being given. We've already publicly announced we'll do a fundraiser at the House for Biden, for Trump, for DeSantis. Come do a fundraiser. We'll bring top 20 of the biggest influencers.
Should bring Bobby in too.
We would gladly bring Bobby in too. Bobby, we're talking right now about doing a podcast with him. I think June 28th, we're doing a live podcast with a couple hundred people with Vivek. I would love to get a Marianne Williamson to maybe debate him and see what that setting will look like. Because if they're not going to, we're going to get them 10, 20, 50 million eyeballs.
Yeah.
We'll get the eyeballs. So this is not a time for these guys to play big shot thinking those guys are not going to get the eyeballs anymore. But I'm sincerely asking you as somebody that I believe you love America. I firmly believe you love America, and I firmly believe a lot of people relate to you. And I know I've been around business for 20-some years. I know how to dodge questions professionally because you have to do that when you're negotiating, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not trying to corner you. Just give me names and why. Like, I think this person, like, for example, RFK, here's why. DeSantis, here's what, whoever it would be. What would some of those names be?
Here's what I'll tell you, because, Ron DeSantis and I served together in Congress, but to be quite honest, I don't know him very well. So what I know of him is what I have seen mostly publicly, but I haven't had a chance to sit in the room as you have to actually really get to know him both as a person, but also really to get into some of the more national issues, to include foreign policy that would inform my ability to answer your question. What I will say is that people like Nikki Haley, Mike Pence, Mike Pompeo, and Chris Christie, we're seeing Governor Asa Hutchinson. They are all part of the permanent establishment machine whose foreign policy would be very, very if not exactly the same, mostly the same as a Hillary Clinton war hawk. So those are the kinds of things that I have picked up on that I'm looking for as these other candidates are out there and they're talking about their positions on issues. And unfortunately, as is always the case, I mean, even though being commander-in-chief is the president's most important and foremost responsibility, the focus on what kinds of decisions they would make as commander-in-chief don't often come up in debates or in forums, and a lot of these presidential candidates don't choose to talk about them. So I'm hoping, as you guys have your forums, that's something that you would help shine a light on, because it is literally a matter of life and death to know what are the kinds of decisions these people would make. Are they going to put us closer to nuclear war with other nuclear armed countries or not? Because that the future of humanity is on the line.
Tulsi, I totally respect the fact that if you haven't, you're not prepared to make any endorsements, and if you've never really sat down with DeSantis, and it's kind of hard to acknowledge all that. But at the same time, in 2020, you did share the stage with a host of Democrats: Bernie, Biden, Amy Klobuchar, Elizabeth Warren, Andrew Yang. He's been on the platform before. Cory Booker, Marianne Williamson, Beto. The list goes on. Of all those names, who do you think you most closely align with or would be a good leader? How about that? I mean, these are people you know.
Sure.
Who did you get along with, even on a personal level? Who do you think would be a good leader of that group?
My answer today would probably be different than it was back then, largely because with everything that we've gone through since I feel like we've almost lived a lifetime from 2020 till now in 2023.
It was this little thing called COVID.
Yeah,
exactly. I mean, it just changed the world a little bit.
The little thing called COVID, frankly, the proxy war with Russia via Ukraine. I mean, a lot of people's lack of courage, unfortunately, has been exposed. The fact that not a single Democrat has voted against, remember that first $40 billion round of funding to go, that kind of brought in the United States involvement in this war against Russia. Not a single Democrat voted against it. I think there were, between the House and Senate, something like 60 or 70 Republicans who voted against, but not a single Democrat had the courage to even just say, let's not rush into this. Let's actually think about what are the second, third, fourth order of consequences that could occur once we bring ourselves into this. What happens when we start to turn on the tap? At what point do we turn it off? The Progressive Caucus in, I think it was November of last year, if you remember, they sent this 30 members of Congress, sent a letter to Joe Biden saying, please exercise diplomacy. to negotiate an end to this war, because if it goes on, it will not only continue to create more suffering and death for the people of Ukraine, but it increases the risk of nuclear war. It will increase the negative impacts on our economy, on inflation, on hunger, and all of these things that are facts, that are very real cost of this war. They sent the letter one day. Within 24 hours, they retracted it. It was some bullshit excuse like, a staffer sent out a letter without our approval, which is nonsense, absolute nonsense. We know what happened. They sent out a letter saying how they actually felt, and they got the hammer laid down on them, and unfortunately didn't have the courage to say no. This is bigger than party politics. We as Democrats, they as Democrats, should have the courage to call out your own president. And I would say the same thing for Republicans. So, it is, I have been really disappointed on a foreign policy perspective, but also with, men going into girls' locker rooms and exposing themselves all, and this being okay in the name of this trans ideology and pervasive acceptance of something that is just, dangerous and fantasy, this gender ideology title, like all of these things that are so obvious and common sense that most people see. I can't think of a single elected Democrat in the House or the Senate, a lot of the names that you've mentioned, who've stood up and just said, what the kid says, right? Hey guys, the emperor has no clothes on. Let's just all admit that. It's not happening. And it's really unfortunate. And it's not reflective of where I believe most Democrats are in the country.
So none of those names, no one that you shared a stage with, you would look back and be like, that person is actually qualified. That person is good. They've all been dismissed from class.
Okay, so to finalize this before we move off this topic, I got 7 more questions for you on this topic. No, let me ask this. So again, your voice, whether you know it or not, I'm sure you know it, carries weight, and people watch to see what you have to say. And so think about it from this standpoint. The audience is watching. This is going to get a few million views, say total 40 million views, short clips, TikTok, Instagram. People watch you. Who should they study more closely and do the research you did? If you were to say, I think, like you just made a comment and you said, hey, I've never spent time with DeSantis. And by the way, you're not the only person that's ever said that. A lot of people have said that they haven't spent a lot of time with DeSantis. So he's not the guy that wants to be in the group setting. Like when you came in here, you and I have never met each other before, but we greeted each other with a hug. Hey, how you doing? You have that feeling of warmth and conversation. Great. This is somebody that's likable, charming, charismatic. People never really said that about him. They've said he's sharp, he's a doer, he's an executive, all this stuff. But who is worthy of the American people on their own going and investigating and watching closely? What would you say?
I think every one of these candidates that's taken the step to run. So, Tim Scott is somebody I know. I like him a lot. He's a great person. I'm interested in learning more about what his positions are on specific issues. Vivek, same thing. He and I have had a few conversations, great conversations. I like a lot of the things that he's saying, also have a lot of questions. I think obviously Trump is more well known. He's got a record. DeSantis has a record here as governor of the state, but also his record, before that in Congress. So I think it is very important. This election, the importance of this election can't be overstated. And so I think as Bobby Kennedy is going out, people are getting to know him better.
Don't they say
I'm
that
really
every
not
election,
dodging
though?
They do
This
say
is
that.
the most important
Last
election of our
question.
life.
But I think this one actually is, and I've never
They
said
say
this.
that every
It
year.
is.
No, but
It
let me
is.
tell you why I think this one actually is. I'll tell you why I think this one actually is. And I'm going to come back to my question on the last one before I wrap up.
7 more.
No, it's only one question. And I hope she gives this one because I need your counsel. I need your help. Sincerely, I need your help.
Yeah.
Here's why I think this one is. And I think this is the problem. The difference between a democracy and a republic. There's a big difference. A republic, the individual is protected from the majority. It's very important where the individual is protected from the majority. Right now, in every community, there's issues that goes on. In some communities, hey, HOA is this much money for every person that lives in this community, but it's not fair. The people that own more land should pay bigger HOA than we're paying. That's kind of like one of the things that's going on right now. Okay, great. You want to do that? Yes, you should pay 3 times because you own the biggest lot and you have the most land here. No problem. Then I should also have the equivalent amount of votes for the amount of lots I'm paying for. So I should get 3 votes. You should get 1 vote. Let's talk about that. I'm okay with that. I got 3 votes. Your vote is 1. No. We didn't say that. No shit, you didn't say that, because now you know you can't bully the individual. So I'm an individual. I want to be protected. I think this next one is very important, because if they flip Texas, and that flips, you're talking about having a Democratic president for the next 20 years. And if this election thing doesn't go into the blockchain technology where you and I can vote from home, and you simply do a camera like this, whatever, the same way you do with your phone, and you show your ID, this is me, you say a couple things, they record it, they know it's you, then you put your name. Great, this person voted. You don't even have to get off your, the couch to go there, and that's a real vote. We have that ability to push for voting to become real. I think if we don't do it this time around, this is going to change a lot of things. But I'm going to go to the last question for you. So help me with this. Help me. Help me help America. Help this immigrant. Help me help America. So if I'm sitting with Vivek, I'll give you 4 names. Vivek, DeSantis, President Trump, and let's put in RFK, those 4 names. Give me one question I should ask all of those 4. Individual could be different. So I would ask Vivek this question. I would ask Trump this question. I would ask DeSantis this question. And I would ask RFK this question. What would the number one question be that you'd want me to ask on behalf of the American people of these 4 folks?
It would be, what is the first thing that you will do
Okay.
to...
I'm taking notes.
To de-escalate tensions with nuclear-armed powers in the world and prevent the likelihood of nuclear war. We are on the brink. We are. That's a fact. Ask them directly, what steps will you take? That's the answer that I'm most interested in hearing from them.
I love it. Thank you for that. We can get off this topic. This was very helpful. Now, let's go into that topic about de-escalating war. So, military-industrial complex. We hear about this all the time. Can you play this clip for me from this gentleman that I'm starting to really like? I'm a big fan of what India is doing and what India is capable of doing. Of course, they're part of BRICS, but I'm watching them very closely to see what I think they're going to be a very, very important force to be reckoned with the next 20, 30, 40 years. Dr. Subramanian Jaishankar, who is an Indian diplomat and politician serving as the minister. He's a beast, right?
He is their Secretary of State, their foreign minister.
That's right. He is, I think, the second since, and he's become the second ever diplomat to be appointed as External Affairs Minister. Very sharp. I like what he says. In this question, someone's asking him a question about Ukraine. So I'll kind of preface what the question was, and then you'll hear his response. I'm sure you've seen this, where it's like, hey, so we're noticing everybody around the world is supporting Ukraine, but you guys are not. Why are you not? And this is his answer. Go ahead, Rob.
To grow out of the mindset.
No, refresh, because you skipped the first second. Yeah. Oh, you got to refresh and get that audio at the same time. So he says Europe has to grow out of this mindset.
Europe has to grow out of the mindset that Europe's problems are the world's problems. But the world's problems are not Europe's problems. The world cannot be that Eurocentric as it used to be in the past. Look, Europe
so if you
has
can
to
pause this, I'm going to go to the sit down you and Tucker hat. This was one of the ones a couple months ago, where he's talking about, I was never a Trump guy, I've seen him, of course. I'm like, what is this guy talking about? He's out of his mind. And then one day he asked the question and says, who funds NATO? I'm like, who gives a shit about who funds NATO? And you remember this exchange with him. And he said, then I started looking, I was like, why are we doing this much money? Why are we putting so much more? He says, the more and more I saw him asking this question, I'm like, okay, these are very, very good questions. So why do you think for the longest time, Europe has gotten away with everybody having to support them, but when it comes down to them having to pay the bill, they're like, no, it's kind of like a friend you go to a restaurant with, and I'll do another old-fashioned, pal, let's do another old-fashioned, and when it comes down for the bill, they get up and go to the bathroom. Europe seems to be doing that, and the other guy gets the bill, and the guy that gets the bill is U.S. The mindset of the military-industrial complex with what's happened with Ukraine, and yesterday, Joe Biden talking about the fact he was asked about, will we give them F-16 fighter jets? And Biden says, not today. Will you one day give them? I can't answer that question, but I think we ought to start training. And the U.S. official said we will not, turn away from any other country who wants to support them with F-16. Essentially what they're saying is we went from money to tanks to this to now we're probably going to give them some F-16s. So why is your concern so high? Or a lot of people, why are so many people concerned about military-industrial complex? Why should that be a top priority for them as a concern?
There's a number of reasons why. Let's start with the most important that we're talking about. That as we sit here today, we are on the brink of nuclear war. That should be concerning to everyone. It should be even more concerning that we have people in positions of consequence and power and influence, both those who hold public office in the highest offices of the land, as well as those who don't, but who are just as influential, talking about the prospects of nuclear war as though it is just like any other kind of war. Talking about the fact that Putin and his government has changed their policies to make it so that they can deploy nuclear weapons, whether they be tactical nuclear weapons or strategic nuclear weapons, if they feel that they are facing an existential threat, specifically omitting the words an existential threat because of a nuclear threat or nuclear weapons. So whatever they deem, for any reason, to be an existential threat will give them the authority to be able to deploy these nuclear weapons. The fact that we have these pundits, these talking heads, these government officials discussing the prospects of nuclear war as though it is something that can be won is shocking and extremely dangerous. Ronald Reagan had the most famous and most important statement after he negotiated some of these non-nuclear proliferation treaties, telling us very clearly, a nuclear war can never be won and should never be fought, period. Things have only gotten worse. Things haven't gotten better since then. We have more nuclear weapons. They have become more sophisticated. A nuclear weapon would kick off a nuclear war that would destroy all of humanity. The military-industrial complex plays a major role in continuing to keep us in some state of war. Why? And some of them have even said it publicly. When we are at war, business is good. What is the cost? The cost comes out of our pockets, our bank accounts, the American people, the taxpayers. We are paying for it. Where those dollars could be and should be dedicated towards actually serving very real needs of people that we have right here at home. The military-industrial complex profits when you see a NATO expansion. That because who are the people that these NATO countries are buying weapons from? They're buying the weapons from our military-industrial complex. When you look at the U.S. footing the bill for NATO, number one, we should be able to ask questions like, why does NATO exist? Why are we the ones who are predominantly funding NATO? Well, with the predominantly of funding of NATO comes the very same leverage we were talking about earlier. Getting these European countries to act not necessarily in their own interest, but in the interest of those in power in the United States is done oftentimes through the leverage of money. So when Trump is saying, hey, you guys got to pay your own way, pay the 2%, my gosh, pay the 2% of your GDP that the rules require.
Common sense.
Many of them didn't want to, but then what comes with that, and you saw recently with, I think it was Macron's visit overseas into China, largely saying the same thing to the European countries. Hey, we need to stop being vassals of the United States. We need to make our own decisions based on what's best for our countries and what's based in the best interest of Europe. The criticism he got for having the audacity to say, hey, we should act in the interest of our own countries says everything that we need to know about the power and the influence and the money that goes behind these decisions. So there's an economic cost, of course, to us and the American people in our country, and there's the cost that comes to our safety, our security, and our freedom.
And the human cost of life.
Exactly.
Funding all these wars. I mean,
exactly.
Money's important, I get it, but not millions and millions of lives that are lost because of it.
Such a great point you're making. It's funny, Rob, if you can find that one clip that I asked you to pull up, the one where the lady says, how do you feel about the 500,000? You know which one I'm talking about. You know this
Madeleine
one here.
Albright.
Yeah, so this clip can't be played enough times. If you can play this real quick.
We have heard that 500,000 children have died. I mean, that's more children than died in Hiroshima. And is the price worth it?
I think this is a very hard choice, but we think the price is worth it.
We think the price is worth it. Okay. So,
and she is somebody who, throughout her life, all the way to the end, was lauded and worshipped by Democrats in the Democratic Party. She was a hero of
Secretary
the Democratic
State,
Party.
was she not?
Bill
Under Clinton.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This is a while back. I don't know what this timeline, the interview is, Rob. If you can
This
find the
was
time, 98 or 96.
mid-90s,
Yeah, something
yeah.
like that. But, so you know how we're kids and we're like, we all think we're tough guys, right? And you're like, what'd you say? Yeah, I'm going to kick your ass. 96. I'm going to kick your ass. And then you're like, okay, maybe you got a punch in and everybody breaks it. That's, yeah. Okay, fine, no problem. And that guy's a cool guy, right? It's funny, as you age, the real tough guys, they'll say, run when you get into a fight. What? So, for example, I hired this one guy who is worked Secret Service or president, and his job is to protect me. And I'm interviewing him. He's a little guy, not a big guy. He's not 6'5". You know what the typical bodyguards are, 6'5", 350 pounds. Offensive line. This guy's 5'10", maybe 160 pounds. I said, dude, do you know how to fight? Do you know how to do, like, what are you going to do if somebody says, let me tell you what my job is. He says, if you want to hire a big guy for commercial to be, physically big, I'm the wrong guy. Because that guy's going to fight the opponents. He says, my job is to make sure you're safe. I'm going to show you how to run the fast. I said, run? He says, we're going to run. If you want to live, we got to get your wife and kids out. We're running. I said, interesting perspective. Jocko, fight breaks out. You run. You don't go and fight. Okay. So right now, this whole thing with military-industrial complex. All right, listen, guys, let's create a proxy war. Let's get Ukraine to be the proxy behind closed doors. Let's help them out to go against Russia. Because if shit hits the fan and this thing gets worse, guys, we can really make some money. Okay, fine. So you can create and instigate. Then you make billions. But the part nobody thinks about is at an older age when you got wife and kids, if you get into a stupid fight, somebody may have a gun. And that gun means your life is over with. In this instance, what if you cross the line too much to the point where this man is publicly being humiliated, and all of a sudden he says, okay, you want to go there? No problem, guy. Fine. Let's roll the dice. Here's what we're doing next. And it's not 500,000 people. It's not 5 million people. Next thing you know, boom, 50 million, 100 million. Most people don't think that's possible. It's like when you sell life, I've been in the life insurance industry 20 years. When you sell life insurance, like you'll hear a lot of times these macho guys will say, I don't need life insurance. I'm 38. 2 years later, I get a phone call from the wife. Remember that one time my husband didn't want to buy? He died. No, I'm not. I don't have anything left. I don't know what to do. Okay, we hear stories like that. How close and how possible is it? Like, okay, a lot of people will say stuff on podcasts and shows. You've been in the military. I stand corrected, not a major or lieutenant colonel, right? You've been to Iraq. You've been to Kuwait. You've been part of a lot of these conversations. Realistically, how likely is it that this thing can get very ugly now that we're willing to entertain the idea given these guys F-16s?
Exactly. That decision will further escalate it. We are the doomsday clock that's reported every year. We are closer to midnight now than ever before. The question of likelihood and how possible, it is very possible, and we are in a position where it is very likely and becoming even more likely the more this war is escalated and the longer it goes on. And we're facing two great risks here. Number one is the scenario you're talking about. If Putin finds himself in a position where he feels like he has nothing else to lose and he is facing this existential threat, it's not a matter of guessing. They have already said they will retain the right to deploy nuclear weapons. How, where, who remains to be seen. That prospect is very real. The second prospect that is just as real and perhaps just as, if not more dangerous, is a situation where there's a miscalculation or there is an unintentional spark that causes that to occur. We saw this through the Soviet Cold War. There were the risk of nuclear war and nuclear weapons being deployed because of misunderstandings, miscommunications, miscalculations. We see something coming in the radar and we thought it was a nuclear weapon. There were so many close calls where nuclear weapons were almost launched because of mistakes rather than out of intention. So in both of those situations, whether intentional or unintentional, it's not outside of the realm of possibility that we could find ourselves tomorrow, in a week, a month, or a year, facing the reality of a nuclear attack and nuclear war, the nuclear fallout that comes after the blast, the nuclear winter that comes after that kills all the crops and takes away people's ability to live. The gravity of this is difficult to describe because it is so immeasurable.
So for 2024, I wrote a question down here for you. I said, if you ran today, or you advise someone who ran today, I don't think you have any plans of running. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
Or okay. So if you ran today, or you advise someone, so let's just say DeSantis, Scott, some of these guys call you and they're like, look, just as a person, I want to get some counsel from you. What would you say would be top 3 issues to run for today? Like the other day, President Biden said the most biggest enemy to America is white supremacists, which is very weird. We're going through all this stuff right now. You want me to be worried about white supremacists? Okay, fine. Maybe it's a top 50 issue. It's definitely not a top 5 or let alone number 1 issue that we have. We know military-industrial complex is one, Ukraine, Russia. Totally get that. What else would you put as a top 5 issue we should be paying attention to?
Yeah, I mean, this issue we're talking about certainly is at the top of the list. I think the second issue is immigration and securing our borders. We cannot have a nation without secure borders. We are seeing the consequences of President Biden's open border policy that's impacting us in just about every way. We see the national security threats of having an open border, people literally streaming across the border from all around the world without any kind of vetting or background. We don't know who's in our country right now. We don't know what kind of threats they may be posing. There's obviously the economic impact, the social welfare system impact. There are so many layers of negative consequences that come from their policy. And the third would be focusing on bringing our economy back, focusing on actually truly supporting and investing in, our small businesses, the people that are often touted as the number 1 employers in the country and yet have the hardest time starting and staying in businesses, actually focusing on what is in the best interest of the American people rather than what they are focusing on, which is themselves and their power to the detriment of the country. I think central to all of this, just to wrap it up in a foundational and fundamental way, is truly supporting and defending our freedom and civil liberties because we are seeing that erosion in so many different ways. Without our freedom, without our civil liberties, we really lose what is at the heart of what it means to be an American in this country.
Where would you put climate on that list? Because I think at one point you were a proponent of the Green New Deal.
No, I never was actually,
Okay.
and got some crap from the Democratic Party for it. I'm a strong environmentalist. Is why I ran for office in Hawaii in the first place back in 2002. Protecting clean water, preserving natural resources, preserving our open spaces, conservation of those resources is essential. Advocating for and promoting things like regenerative farming versus factory farms, like actually making sure that this planet that we live on can stick around and help us survive is incredibly important. Unfortunately, what we're seeing with this climate change movement is something that really isn't even addressing all of these things that are essential for us to be able to exist and survive.
What about the part of the Inflation Reduction Act that was the largest investment in climate change that we've ever done? Did you think that was a good move? What are your thoughts on that?
No,
Why is that?
I oppose that legislation because it had nothing to do with inflation reduction, first of all. So it was sold on a lie. And
So funny.
And
Marketing.
I think that's literally all it was. And they couldn't even stick with their own story on it. They kept on calling it exactly that, the greatest climate. Oh, no, wait, sorry. People care about inflation. Let's just call it the Inflation Reduction Act.
But there was a component of it, whatever it was, $200 billion that was dedicated to climate issues. Was that something you were an advocate of?
I don't see how I did not see how what they were advocating for would actually address these basic environmental concerns that are very real in this country. Yeah. I think a lot of people who are advocating for those things, if you look at their own personal life decisions, there's a lot of hypocrisy there too.
I think the reason why Adam's asking that question is because he's deeply concerned with the humidity in Miami, and he was hoping you wanted to do something about it. Yeah, so but that's it is what it
Miami
is.
and Hawaii, it's tough out here.
So by the way, Tulsi,
I just want to mention on the climate change question. What's the name of the author who wrote Jurassic Park? Famous author,
Michael Crichton.
Michael Crichton. He wrote a book, and I can't remember the title right now, but he wrote a book like 20 years ago, fiction. It's a novel. But it was about exactly what's happening today, where just like we have the military-industrial complex, he didn't call it this, but it was kind of like the climate change industrial complex of people manipulating information and narratives and quote-unquote scientific data in order to support their own industry, essentially. And anyway, it's a fascinating book. And
State of Fear?
Yes.
Okay.
It's almost like the climate change version of 1984.
Yeah, almost. And I just read it. I listened to a lot of audiobooks while I work out.
Is it worth listening to?
It really is, because there's some, it's a novel. So there's some action, there's some thriller stuff in there. But when you look at the heart of it, it's just one of those eye-opening and kind of insightful things.
Just so you know how Pat rolls, he just purchased the book right then and there.
I love it.
This guy don't stop.
I want to learn.
No
I'm learning
down.
from Tulsi. That's why she's here with us.
Not trying
Tulsi,
to live in a state of fear.
curiosity in the area of, it's officially bought. So curiosity in the
You're welcome, Michael Crichton.
You just got $15 more, buddy.
So curiosity in the following area. We had a conversation with Buck Sexton and Clay Travis, and we talked about endorsements. Okay, like the power of endorsements and what it means, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so. How much value is there in getting these endorsements? Okay, so the weight of an endorsement. For example, you get it from a heavyweight politician, a president, a media mogul, right? Like a Oprah Winfrey or a Musk or someone like that, or an entrepreneur, a Buffett, a Bezos, and a Musk, or something like a Mark Cuban, or triple threat like a Musk that's got all three sides. Influencers, where podcast Rogan, Ben Shapiro, all these other guys that got their influence, Logan Paul, even some of these other guys that are doing what they're, because nowadays they're getting them. Hollywood stars like The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, military general coming and backing you up. How much power and influence is there in these types of endorsement? Or is it just marketing? It's not really a big deal.
I think it depends.
Okay.
It depends on the person. It depends on their reasoning. Yeah, it really depends. And it depends on, I would say like Joe Rogan, for example. He has he's obviously hugely influential, and he has a very loyal following. And he found, I think, over the last few years, especially, how the things that he says really do have a direct impact on people.
Yeah.
I've also heard people say, that candidates say that they would shun an endorsement from a Beyonce or a big celebrity figure because that just has, you're just one of those elitists who I can't relate to as an everyday American. And so that actually ends up having, even though, she's like the most powerful, talented musician, singer in the world, I've heard candidates say, well, actually, no, I don't want those kinds of endorsements because it sends the wrong message. So, I think every one of these things has its own, pros and cons. And I don't think there's kind of a cookie cutter impact. Some are hugely consequential and others not, and others have a negative consequence.
How much you think a Musk is? By the way, Jay-Z and Beyonce just bought the most expensive house in California in Malibu for $200 million. They just closed it this week.
Wow.
It's a 2-bedroom apartment.
It's on the water, though.
Right.
but ocean views, too bad.
How much you think an Elon Musk endorsement, how much weight does that carry? You think it's a big weight, especially for somebody, let's just say on the middle, center, right?
I think it certainly carries weight for people who like what he's doing and who follow him. I think it would also, how much weight does it carry would depend on how much of his own skin in the game. If he just says, I like this guy, and then he never says anything again, has a different consequence than him actually doing what you were talking about in the beginning. Hey, you're a person of influence, a person of means. if you really want to see this change, how much are you willing to put your own skin in the game to actually make it happen?
Got it. So if he was, let's just say, to a pack on Trump or whoever, and he put up, or DeSantis, whoever, and he put up something like $100 million, is that a way of others saying, damn, if he's going like that with this person, there's got to be something we don't know? Do you think that carries a very big stick, very big influence?
That would make a big impact.
That would make a big impact.
Yeah.
It's amazing what $100 million would do these days. You know, it'll buy some influence.
I mean, Bloomberg tried to do it. It didn't do anything for him. But, I'm just thinking about how much these things, because, a lot of people, this person got endorsed by that person, this person got endorsed by that person. You wonder what it really means.
I think Bloomberg, though, is kind of an example. Again, I don't, he was running for president at the same time. I never got to know him at all. But what I saw on the ground was people were very happy to take his money.
Yeah.
Didn't mean they supported him. Didn't mean they voted for him.
I thought you were going to say what I saw on the ground was a 6-inch lift like this. I thought that's what you were going to say. I'm sorry. I thought that's where you were going with it. And then you took a left turn. I went right. My apologies.
Was his
folks.
$100 million for his own campaign?
Yeah.
Or was that, okay, gotcha. But there's a big difference between putting $100 million backing yourself versus an Elon backing a DeSantis, for example. There's a big difference there.
Yeah. Yeah.
No,
Right?
but I think, he spent $100 million on Biden, guys. He spent in Florida. No,
He spent $100 million
Interesting.
just
on
for Florida.
Biden?
Yes, that's what I was. I know he spent a lot of money on himself, but I'm talking specifically with Biden. Okay,
Wow.
Durham report comes out.
Yes.
Okay, mainstream media, nobody even talks about it. Everybody else is like, wait a minute, did you guys just see what happened here? Okay, this is a real thing. What was in the Durham report that people need to pay more attention to?
What I did see, first of all, from talking heads on MSNBC, and I believe even CNN, was they did talk about it, actually, maybe not much, but what they did say about it was a complete dismissal, that it was nothing of value, that it should not be paid attention to, that it was just more lies and more bias, et cetera, completely dismissing it and not actually addressing the substance of it. The one person who I would say was pretty fair in his analysis was Jake Tapper on CNN. When he talked about it, he had a fair interview on what was in the report, what wasn't in the report, and his own statement was that this was essentially an exoneration of Donald Trump. Fox News covered it, obviously. And I think overall, the major takeaway for people who don't have time to read the report or didn't catch it in the news is that it absolutely exposed the FBI. The FBI is being weaponized essentially by the Hillary Clinton camp. Barack Obama and his team were aware of it, to go after and investigate and try to undermine Donald Trump's candidacy and presidency.
I want to read this from Washington Examiner, May 19. Durham report, 5 key takeaways from the bombshell findings into Trump-Russia investigation. No proper basis to launch Crossfire Hurricane. Durham report claims that Crossfire Hurricane, the Trump-Russia investigation, lacked a proper foundation due to the FBI's failure to conduct key source interviews, review its own databases, and apply standard analytical tools. 2, Hillary Clinton connections. The report indicates instances of FBI favoritism towards Hillary Clinton, including defensive briefings, ending an investigation due to illicit campaign funds, and restricted probes into the Clinton Foundation. Mark Elias, the Clinton campaign's general counsel, and Michael Sussman, his former Perkins Cole law firm colleagues, are criticized for their roles with Fusion GPS and Steele dossier. And then third, dossier on Russian disinformation. The report uncovers the use of unverified Steele report of Pfizer applications targeting former Trump campaign associate Carter Page. Intelligence might have compromised Steele's sources, and highlights that Igor Danchenko provided Steele with rumor and speculation. Number 4, no collusion. Durham's report suggests that absence of tangible collusion evidence at the onset of Crossfire Hurricane, while the FBI continuously upheld claims from Steele dossier disregarding contradiction information. Last but not least, no further crimes charged. The report culminated in only one guilty plea by ex-FBI lawyer Kevin Kleinsmith for document falsification, despite charges against Sussman and Danchenko, and report found no further criminal offenses. The reason why I'm bringing this up is because back in 2016, this is what Hillary Clinton said about you. Russia's grooming her to be the third-party candidate. She's the favorite of the Russians. They have a bunch of sites and bots and other ways of supporting her so far, just like Jill Stein did back in 2016. You responded, the queen of warmongers, embodiment of corruption, and personification of the rot that has sickened the Democratic Party for so long. I mean, you went gentle at her the way you did. So the reason why I'm kind of putting these two together is the following reason. One, a lot of smart people believed that Trump was tied to Russia. A lot of educated people. A lot of people that are professionals. They have degrees. They're smart. They're like, yeah, you know what? He is. And for 3 years, most of America actually believed it. And I know you try to sue Hillary Clinton, and I think that whole thing back and forth, 7 months later, whatever happened with that. But now Fox pays $787, to Dominion, and there's another $1.7 billion or $2.1 billion that's right now sitting with Smartmatic. I mean, are you kidding me? Like, do you not have any more where I feel like this is the part of Republicans where they screw up? You have something like this that just came out. Why not get lawyered up, create a fund of Americans that would want to fund this? Hey, this is how I would do it. Listen, guys, I'm not doing this alone. I'm not going to pay the legal fees. It's going to cost a lot of money. You really want this? If this hits $50 million on GoFundMe, we're going to go get the best lawyers and investigate every single thing Clinton's, ABC, CBS, NBC, CNN, everybody did. We will investigate it and we will show documentation of all our expenses, but we will not do it until it hits $50 million. You want it? Pay up. Pay some money to GoFundMe. Why isn't that happening? I feel like a lot of American people are sitting there saying, dude, all this shit, show some backbone, go fight, give a lawsuit, do something about it. You're not doing nothing about it.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on this?
I mean, it's a great question. Without any response or true accountability, there's no reason why this kind of thing wouldn't happen again. There's a reason why people believed all of it. It's a reason why people, when Hillary Clinton said that to me, my first reaction was like, this is so insane, it's laughable.
Were you expecting it at all when she said that?
Of course not. No, I wasn't.
Came out of left field.
Only reason I'm asking is, like, were you hearing behind closed doors she was saying it to other people?
I knew that there were murmurs.
Okay.
Because I mean, look at what happened to Donald Trump. It became the go-to line when they didn't like what someone was saying. It was automatically like, oh,
Sure.
okay, these are Russian talking points, or it became kind of that thing. I was not expecting, the former Secretary of State, former U.S. Senator, former First Lady, to spend the time talking about me in this light and smearing me and trying to cancel me. But the reason why people, and as I campaigned and I went out and talked to people, I was confronted sometimes angrily, sometimes very emotionally. This woman, I'll never forget, I was at a very small little Democratic Party event in a small rural county in South Carolina. And this woman who was the chair of that county Democratic Party came up to me. There's probably 50 people in the room. And she put her hands on my shoulder, and she was so serious, and her eyes were almost welling up with tears. And she said, I need to look you in the eyes and ask you, are you working for Putin? She was not joking. It was a very, she obviously took her role seriously. She took her leadership seriously. This was something that was really, really concerning to her. And I looked her directly back in the eye and I said, I love my country so much so that I'm willing to die to protect and defend the United States of America and the American people. Does that answer your question? She said, yes, thank you. But the fact that it impacted her so deeply shows not only, again, the influence of the Clintons, Hillary Clinton, but what is that machine? Why is it that these things become believable? Why are they never questioned? Why is there never a request for evidence? Why didn't Axelrod in that conversation say, oh, really interesting. What evidence do you have to prove that point? These things were never asked in the mainstream media. They just repeat the talking point over and over, just as they did during the Trump campaign and the Trump presidency, without actually asking for evidence. Why aren't they asking? Because they don't care. They repeat the talking point enough to the point where people believe, well, this is fact. I heard it on CNN. I heard it on MSNBC. I heard it from Hillary Clinton. How could it not be true? And I've had so many conversations with people, like even people who know me personally, And they are like, people on CNN lie. Like, but why would they lie? They probably just got bad information. They didn't mean to. Like, no. There's nefarious intent here to manipulate the American people to believe certain things so that then they take action in the interest of that status quo. The Hunter Biden laptop, the 51 senior former intelligence officials. There's unfortunately many examples of how these lies are created, spread, and perpetuated in order to achieve a specific outcome. And you're right, Pat. If there's no accountability, if there's no action taken, these are some of the things that we need to be continuing to look out for as we head into this next election.
That would be one of my rally cries. I would say, listen, here's what we'll do. You want us to find out more about this? I want you to also put put your money where your mouth is. $50, $100. You're not giving it to me. You're giving it to the contribution. Let's go figure this thing out. And we'll go get the best lawyers. But obviously you're qualified to talk about this. That's why I wanted to ask you about it, on how much impact it had. If a woman's coming up to you saying, I got to look at you in your eyes to see if you're an asset to Putin.
It broke my heart to hear her say that, because I could tell it was hurting her.
It tells you propaganda works.
Yeah.
It's very effective. Were you going to say something?
I just wanted to understand, why do you think Hillary Clinton targeted you, of all people, of anyone in politics? What was her goal targeting you and labeling you a Russian asset?
Broadly, I was someone who, over the years, even as she was Secretary of State under President Obama, was very outspoken and very critical of her decisions, her influence, obviously critical of the president at the time of some of those foreign policy decisions. When I left as vice chair of the DNC to endorse Bernie Sanders because of his position on foreign policy, speaking out very clearly and critically on Hillary Clinton's foreign policy, fairly certain that put me on their list, which I'm told is a very, very real thing. Being somebody that they couldn't control and who had the audacity to challenge them is my guess is why she has chosen on more than one occasion to try to smear me. It was interesting. One of the interviews that I did, I think it was actually on MSNBC right after I left as vice chair of the DNC. The host of the show, and I don't remember who exactly it was, the host of the show, it was right before a presidential primary debate. They said, Tulsi, aren't you afraid of the Clintons and what they might do? And it was live television. It wasn't a pre-tape.
Oh, damn.
And I smiled. I said, no, I'm not.
Good for you.
Things
By the
happen.
Way, in this
I like being alive, by the way.
I think we all do.
Every day is a blessing.
Oh my God.
Out of curiosity, nothing to do with the war, nothing to do with Ukraine, Russia. Just what are your thoughts on Vladimir Putin and his mindset these days?
His mindset, I think when we look at from a foreign policy perspective, I'm not going to pretend to claim to know what's going through his mind, but I think if we look from the outsider's view in, as you have NATO continuing to expand, continuing to surround Russia. You look back to what Putin has said has been his most concern from the greatest concern from the very beginning, which was not being surrounded on all sides by NATO armed countries and feeling that threat. So this latest development of what looks to be the United States providing F-16s either directly or indirectly to Ukraine, this is going to be a very serious escalation in this war that could lead to those disastrous consequences of the nuclear war that we're talking about.
The reason I asked is there's a large contingency of people on the right who actually have higher approval ratings of Putin than they do of Biden, which is concerning. I get, if you're American, whether you like Biden or like Trump, you should support our president as a primary focal point rather than a Russian dictator.
Yeah.
Why do you think people are so fascinated?
I won't even begin. I have no idea. But I think it's more important. I don't think we should blindly support anybody, period. I think it's more important for us as Americans, regardless of political party, to stand together on our ideals and principles that we celebrate and that we should cherish in this country. Those principles of freedom and our God-given rights that are enshrined in the Constitution. Those are things that they are under attack. They are under threat. And they are things, unfortunately, that we cannot take for granted at this time when people are saying, well, hey, maybe the First Amendment, no longer applies, that it's okay to silence and censor and cancel certain people's speech. These are things that we used to all be able to agree on. And even something as sacred as the First Amendment is no longer sacred, unfortunately. And it should concern everyone.
I'll give you my response, okay? I respect anybody that loves their family, defends their heritage, defends their denomination, whatever faith they have, and fights for their country to protect their people and not giving deals to people on the outside that they're for sale. I don't have to like you, but I can respect you. In the industry business, I've been competing for a long time. Guys sold out their people all the time. They would sell their agents to get money on the side and nobody knew about it. They would sell their employees. They would sell everything they could in a way of running their agency. They got, 5,000 agents. Hey, I'll give you $1 million if you also sell this. Nobody knew about it. We never sold out. He has protected his country. As a nationalist of Russia, that's something you got to respect. Unfortunately, in America, my sister sent me the national anthem for Germany. Okay, I want to read this to you. This is Germany's national anthem. Okay, pull it. I don't know if you just sent it to me. This was a few days ago. It says, Germany, Germany, above everyone in the world. Guess what? Deutschland, Deutschland, über alles in der Welt. Okay? Somebody may say, well, that's Hitler. And that's I totally get it. But in America, we're embarrassed to read our Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, or, our prayers that we have, these things that we did. We're embarrassed, the fact that America was number one for so long. And I respect anybody that is proud of whoever they are. By the way, I don't have to agree with your political philosophies, but I respect the fact that you respect where you come from. That's a whole different conversation. I don't want to get into that part. That's just my thoughts on Russia. And FYI, no, we shouldn't be supportive of that guy. America first is what it needs to be. And this criticism that Americans are apologizing about being America first is the most pathetic thing ever. Can you imagine you having to apologize for being married to your wife, and every day you have to apologize for your kids, you have to apologize for your parents, you have to apologize? What do you mean I have to apologize? I'm an Assyrian, I'm Armenian, I'm proud. I'm from Iran. I'm proud that I was born and raised in Iran. I'm proud to be an American. I'm proud to be a veteran. I'm proud. I'm proud. We ought to be proud. Some people are not proud of being Americans, and that's pathetic in my eyes. Now, let's go to the last couple topics that we have. Great question, Adam. Here's the last couple topics. One of them is Musk and Cuban on what's been going back and forth with, Cuban said a couple comments about Musk.
I missed that.
Okay, no problem. I'll read it to you. I'll read it to you. And then, maybe even an open-ended question. I'm sure you're kind of following what's going on with, what do you call it? Musk's recent hire, the CEO.
Yeah.
Some are happy about it. Some are concerned. World Economic Forum. Is he going this direction? Is he going that direction? He does an interview the next day. The guy asks the question. I don't know if you've seen this or not, where there's a 10-second pause. Can you pull this up where he says, "I'll say whatever I want to say"?
Great clip.
Great
on
clip,
CNBC,
right?
yes.
What title should he put to find this clip with the 10-second?
I do what I want.
Musk. You know which one I'm talking about? I think it's
That's
that
it right
one.
there.
Can you zoom in a little bit to see? If you see how long is that? 2 minutes and 40. No, don't do that one, because you're going to have to find the 10-second clip. Maybe in the search, put 10 seconds. In the search, put 10 seconds for this to come up. 10 seconds to come up. Okay, well, you look for it. I want to ask Tulsi. Tulsi, what do you think about the hire of his recent CEO? I think her name is, I want to say Linda is her name.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the recent CEO hire?
I mean, based on what I know is extremely superficial.
Okay.
I've read a little bit of the top lines about people's concerns about her associations or things that she said or spoken on. What's interesting is that the concerns that have come from people who say that they are conservatives are talking about, she part of the globalist movement, et cetera, et cetera. On the Democrat side or on the mainstream media side, the concerns they pointed out was that she follows a lot of conservatives on Twitter. And so I just thought it was interesting that you have both sides finding reasons to criticize her. I don't know her. I don't know what are the qualities that Elon Musk saw in her to bring her on the table, to bring her on board.
Great. Let's play this clip. This is a clip of a recent interview he did, and his response is just powerful. Go for it.
You gotta play the question.
Scene in The Princess Bride.
This is the short version doesn't have the question in it.
Yeah.
What was the question? Do you remember?
The question was essentially, how concerned are you that your personal ideology, your personal tweets, your memes, everything that you do might affect the stock price of Tesla and the ramifications of that.
Sure.
And this is in regards to his tweet calling George Soros Magneto.
Gotcha.
That was fact checked, though, right? That he is Magneto. Go ahead.
Long pause.
There's a scene in The Princess Bride.
Powerful.
Great movie.
Great movie.
Where he confronts the person who killed his father. And he says, offer me money. Offer me power. I don't care.
So you just don't care. You want to share what you have to say.
I'll say what I want to say, and if the consequence of that is losing money, so be it.
My man. Gotta
No
love
flinch.
it. Gotta love
No
it. This
flinch.
freaking
That's
guy.
powerful.
Yeah. I mean, look, I hope he stays in this state. There's a lot of concerns. I also have about this new CEO. But, I ran a poll the other day. Hey, bad hire, good hire, let's wait and see. I think good hire was 6%. Bad hire was like 24%. And let's wait and see was like 60+%. Obviously, the right answer for all of us is let's wait and see. We're going to find out what's going to happen. If she's just an advertising person, and to come from there defending kind of BlackRock and some of that stuff was a little bit concerning. So let's talk ESG.
Just on that clip, I just want to say, I think earlier we were talking about what do people value. That says a lot about a person. What is most important? What does he value? Obviously, he's a business guy, wildly successful. He's good at what he does. But when it comes right down to it, what does he actually value?
I learned that he values awesome movies. The Princess Bride. I mean, if you've never seen that movie, forget about it.
I've seen it a few times.
My
It's
name
great.
is Arrigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die. And what a powerful movie. Andre the Giant. Shout out to him.
Yeah.
Gotta love him, though. Like to see like different. But by the way, what's your favorite movie? Now that he quoted a movie, do you have a favorite movie?
It's a mini series called Band of Brothers.
Of course, that's World War II.
World War
That's
II.
Tom Hanks.
It is. It is Tom Hanks. I've over the years seen it a number of times. I think the first time I saw it is actually going through officer candidate school in the Army, and we had to over however many weeks it was, we watched an episode and we had to write an essay on the lessons of leadership, either successful or failures of leadership that came from each episode that was based on World War II.
Favorite actor or actress?
Ooh, Denzel Washington.
Really?
Yeah.
Favorite Denzel movie?
Ooh, I can't think of a bad one.
Come on, give me the favorite one.
I'm so bad
Pat,
with
there's
titles.
one that Pat wants you to
but I
say.
wanna
very
see what
fast.
she's
the
gonna
one,
say.
It's the one where he plays the bad cop.
Oh, okay.
Oh, Training Day.
Training
Thank
Day,
you.
yeah.
What a
Training Day.
ridiculous movie.
Yeah.
King Kong
With
ain't
Ethan
got
Hawke.
nothing on me,
Yeah. That's definitely up there.
Oh yeah. Go ahead. Say what's on your mind. Your favorite Denzel
listen,
movie.
for me, movies of vengeance, redemption, revenge. Those movies are like, it's like Skittles to a 12-year-old who loves candy.
So what's your favorite?
Man on Fire is with Denzel. To me, that's like in John Q, the scene with him and his kid and the doctor. He buries me, not the other way. You feel the tug.
Yeah.
The guy's a great actor.
Yeah.
But yeah, all-time movie, I would probably say, Notebook, Gone with the Wind. I'm just kidding. but Notebook.
You
is
do like the Notebook.
Getting the
I
sensitive
freaking
side
love
here.
You do got a
Notebook, but
little
it's
thing for
I have
probably
never
top
seen
50.
that movie. You know that? I've never seen it.
Really?
Yeah.
Tulsi.
You're missing
I know.
out.
What do you want?
You're missing out.
What do you want?
It's actually a very political movie. Do you go for money or do you go for your beliefs?
Yes.
That's what it's about.
Interesting.
But okay, so with in regards to ESG, DEI, CEI, all this stuff, the other day we're kind of sitting around and we're looking at the next episode to shoot and we're seeing the ties with ESG, DEI, CEI, and then you look at CEI, that Corporate Equality Index, who's behind it, who's giving the scoring. Are you concerned about the direction they're going with ESG, DEI, You think this is going to work? Or you think eventually people are going to be like, listen, the hell are you doing with this Bud Light? This was a dumb move. What are you doing, Ford Raptor?
Yeah.
Do you even make Hollywood? You just made an announcement that a third of everybody you hire has to be from an underrepresented community, and I have to hire a black, a Hispanic, a woman, a LGBT, a this, a that, and even Richard Dreyfuss and actors are coming out and saying this doesn't make any sense. Do you think this is eventually going to be exposed as a terrible idea, or do you think this is going to be used as a way to weaponize small business owners and S&P 500 companies?
Both. I think that it is already being. So the fact that you've got some of the biggest actors in history, or in our time at least, actually, maybe for the first time coming out and speaking out against this stuff is pretty powerful. And I think it is starting to expose the hypocrisy and the insanity of it. And I think there's already evidence showing how it is being manipulated and weaponized. So they talk about these things with these very altruistic, idealistic intentions and objectives. We're working for equity without, the clip of Bernie Sanders on Bill Maher, the conversation they had about equity versus equality was very telling when Bill Maher had to describe to Bernie, what equity really means. And he said, so what is it, equity or equality? And Bernie says, well, equality. There are these acronyms that are being thrown out by people as though it's for the best public good. Many of them don't even know what it actually means. And we've seen with the ESG some of the scoring and things that have been done that are show that it's being manipulated for other interests than the public good they are claiming it to be. So I think both are already starting to be exposed as we speak.
That's good. The sooner the better, because it's not really making leaders make the right decisions. Is this a clip you're talking about, the equality?
I think so.
Can we
Let's
play
see what
this?
this is.
Yeah,
I
this is
actually want
good.
to see it.
This
I've
is
never
important.
seen this.
Yeah.
Are we confusing equality of opportunity with trying to guarantee equity in outcomes? Okay, that's interesting because
By far the best
I think
hairdo.
this word equity has
Bernie
come into the
Sanders.
language in the last few years, and before that we didn't hear it a lot. And I think a lot of people hear equity and they hear equality. That like it's the same word, and it's not the same word in the same
I believe this is the episode
concept.
with Russell
So
Brand.
how would you differentiate between equity and
Is that
equality?
him there? Yeah.
Well, equality, we talk about, I don't know what the answer is.
I was going to say, you can tell he doesn't even know.
Tell me
what
to
this
think
is.
of it. Equality is equality of opportunity. All right? We live in a society, we want all people to have whatever color your skin is.
Equity, I think, is more guarantee of outcome, is it not?
I think so. I think that's
okay. So which side do you come down on?
Equality.
Equality.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Boys, any comment on that one?
I just don't know if that's the definitional difference.
We can.
Oh my God, that was great.
But it's good. It's very straightforward. And I think he's right. I think a lot of people don't know the difference, but they're using these words because it's the thing that everybody's saying and it's the popular thing of the moment.
Did you ever think there would come a time where, the feminist movement has tried so hard to, get to a point where it's men and women are equal, right? Hey, we want equal pay. We want you to watch WNBA, whether you like it or not. We want the same amount of viewers. We want you to pay us the same amount of money. We want you to give us the same amount of respect, all this stuff. And then they get so wild and crazy that even the feminist movement ends up losing to men because they allow men to join their camp and just call themselves. Did you ever think this day was going to come?
No, never.
Tulsi, how did we get here? This is a little weird for me. How did we get here?
It is. It is this mental illness that is taking over our society, where things that are not real are being sold as real, things that are not true are being sold as true, and it's this exercise of power. And this is the underlying danger that sits beneath all of these crazy things, is that those who are in power across, government, not all of these different entities, are putting us in a position where we are being told that we just have to comply and go along with whatever they say. That there is no room for critical thinking or questioning or common sense or science or biology even. That whatever they say goes, and we have to just fall in line. And that's the real danger that that is the common thread with all of these crazy examples that we're seeing that aren't just, they're not theoretical. It's not just for the sake of arguments. We're actually seeing the very real impacts on kids, on our society, on our communities.
Don't they call it the woke mind virus? Do you think that's an appropriate name for this?
I do.
What's next, though? I guess, we had a gentleman here, I think I can say gentleman, Frank from Gays Against Groomers, and we're having a great conversation with him. And I said, so we talked about the uncomfortable conversations that nobody wants to talk about because God knows they could lose votes and they can lose this and this and that. I'm like, look, at first, when somebody, I'm gay or I'm lesbian, I'm this, okay. There was a certain connotation. There was a certain hey, this is not a normal behavior. But we said, military, don't ask, don't tell. I was in a unit with a couple guys that were gay. It's very easy to tell when you're in the showers. Like, hey, bro, you okay? Is everything okay with you? You seem a little excited. And then you find out 6 months later, now I know why you're always fired up. Okay, you should have told us so we would have had different schedules for showers.
I'm fired up, Pat. I'm ready to go fight.
Little awkward. You're like, dude, I don't know what he's seeing that he's so excited about. And we would always talk about it. Finally, we laughed about it. But, it was a don't ask, don't tell type of a situation. Today, we have to salute. We have to do this. We have to do that. And then all of a sudden, the more and more and more, we kept buying into this concept of, but it's normal, but it's normal, but it's normal, it's normal. And I got a book upstairs saying it's normal. Millions of copies sold. It's a book for 10-year-olds in school on how boys have sex with boys and how girls have sex with girls and how boys have sex with girls and all this stuff. Okay, it's not the gay BC, it's the other one. It's called It's Normal, something like that. But I asked this question because when the camera's off, people are willing to talk about this more openly. When the camera's on, everybody's a little bit careful about it. It's perfectly normal. That's the book. Everybody's a little bit careful about it because what if this and what if that and what if this, right? It isn't the reason why we kind of got here where Sports Illustrated, I have no problem with Martha Stewart. She actually looks good for an 81-year-old. Go to the other
how
one.
Old she is?
Yes.
Yeah, apparently 81. I thought I was.
She looks great for 81. On the cover of Sports Illustrated.
Respect. But do the guy that's wearing this one piece. Do you know which one I'm talking? You know which one I'm talking about.
First, Adidas. I think it was Adidas.
Is it Adidas? Can you go to Adidas? Folks, just bear for it's a little bit strange, this model. Anyways, I guess I will find it here, the picture. Do you think it's a little strange that the more and more and more accepting we become, gradually the next thing they could pitch is the fact that a 44-year-old ends up being with somebody who is 13 years old? Well, guess what? That's just what it is. That's who they accept. And, it's normal. It's normal. We should accept the fact that they love each other. And some people say, well, you're out of your mind. This will never happen. We'll never get there. Nobody ever thought we're going to get here.
Well, it's already happening. It's already happening. The normalization of pedophilia. The fact that there is such a term as a minor attracted person.
Oh, my God.
The fact that is a term that's being used and assigned to people who are adults who are, quote unquote, attracted to minors. Yeah, that's a pedophile. That's a crime against a child. And those criminals should be locked up and kept away from children.
How are Democrats supporting that, though?
That's my point. I have not heard a single Democrat in Congress, in the House or the Senate, speak out against this nonsense. And their response is always like, oh, it's a non-issue. Like, these things only affect a handful of people. They don't actually speak to or address what is happening and how we have people who are teachers who are out there and they're on social media saying, well, I'm a minor attracted person. I shouldn't be discriminated against anyway. This is people who are entrusted with the well-being and safety of our kids. So this progression that you're talking about is very, very real. And the fact that it is happening not only with the acceptance but encouragement of the very same people who are totally fine with these books that are sexualizing kids as young as 5, 6, 7 years old. I'm not a parent, but parents everywhere, people who care about children everywhere, should be stepping up and speaking out about against it.
Can I ask you a question on this topic? So back to the LGBTQIA plus, all this stuff. Dave Chappelle has an amazing take on this, amazing joke. And he basically gives the metaphor that they're all in a car together. They're heading in the same direction, but they all have completely different agendas.
Yeah.
Like the L is different from the B versus the G versus the T. And he basically, summarizing this is like the G's driving because that's the gay guy and he's driving and he's the man, whatever. And then the L is sitting in the front seat and she's doing her thing and everybody loves the L's because, who doesn't like the L's except for the G because he's like, I wouldn't wear that, this whole deal. And then the B is in the back and she's just like, listen, I'll do whatever anyone wants in this car. But then you get to the T's. And the whole premise of his joke is like, nobody's got a problem with any of this stuff.
Yeah.
But this T thing that's where people are like, what's the T? Are you a guy or a girl? You're cutting things off. You're moving things around. You're a man, but you want to play in women's sports. And I'm one of the people that are like, I think that women should be more outspoken about this.
I agree.
So, I host another show, Sozcast, and I have a lot of women on my show. And I do a lot of man on the street interviews. And I'll ask them a series of questions about money and dating and relationships. And then I'll say, hey, by the way, what are your thoughts on biological men playing in women's sports? And that's the one question that women are like, I don't want to answer that on camera. I don't really want to talk about it. And then, all right, cool, next question. And then the interview's over and they're like, listen, I didn't really want to talk about it, but I think it's really freaking weird. And I don't want to share bathrooms with guys. And, I just don't want to offend people and say this stuff on camera. But just between you and me, I'm not comfortable with it. I'm like, why wouldn't you say that on camera? Well, cancel culture, this, that, and the other. Why do you think young women specifically are so afraid to speak on this topic?
I think it is that power of self-censorship that has been, that it's kind of a mandate of self-censorship that if you don't go along to get along, then you will be canceled and you'll be attacked and you'll be called names and you will be smeared. Bethany Hamilton is a surfer out of Hawaii. You know who I'm talking about. She had her arm bitten off by a surfer, a shark when she was a kid.
Yep.
Still competing on the circuit. And once the World Surf League announced biological males will be allowed to compete against women on the tour, she was the only one who had the courage to speak out. She never talks about politics. She is so pleasant, so mellow, doesn't get involved with any of the headlines or anything that goes on, but she recognized that she had a responsibility to speak up, and she did, and she got attacked heavily for it, which I think she expected, and she spoke out in the sweetest, kindest, most compassionate way, just saying that I'm not against anyone, but this is about what's fair and what's right for women on the tour, and it's just not right. Shortly after that, International Women's Day came around, and every year the WSL welcomes professional surfers, men who want to put the name of a prominent woman who inspires them on the back of their jersey for the contest on that day. I think there were 5 or 6 men who wanted to put Bethany Hamilton's name on their jersey that day, and the WSL said no.
Wow.
You are not allowed to put her name alone on your jersey.
A woman's name.
A woman's name.
Yeah.
A woman who has, throughout her lifetime, exceeded all of the obstacles put before her and is thriving as a human being, as a professional surfer, because she had the audacity to speak out the truth. This was the consequence. It's good to see. I think slowly, it's not happening fast enough, but slowly there are more women who are being directly impacted, inspired by people like Riley Gaines and Bethany Hamilton.
I was just going to bring up
others.
Riley Gaines. The same story is almost like that,
Right.
just in the swimming with Leah Thomas.
Absolutely.
This whole deal.
But they're inspiring a lot of other women, girls to recognize how powerful their voice can be.
Just in case you guys are looking to buy some gifts for some friends, this is the latest swimwear from Adidas. If you want to open it up.
Girl.
If you want to zoom in a little bit, Rob. That kind of sounded bad. I'm so sorry, guys. I'm not trying to be funny, but that's a little weird. Okay, I don't care what.
Very weird.
It's a little weird. Okay, for them to try to normalize this is extremely weird. But you know what this does to them?
It says home women clothing.
There we go.
Yep.
Do you know what this does to them? This increases their CEI score, their ESG score.
Right.
That's what this does.
What is this? I'm familiar with DEI, ESG. This is a new one now, CEI?
By the way, here's the craziest thing about CEI. CEI is a form of a DEI. You know, DEI is what? Diversity, equity, inclusive, the whole thing. CEI is Corporate Equality Index. And the ones that give the scores to them is a company called HRC. HRC stands for Human Rights
Hillary
Campaign.
Rodham Clinton. Oh,
HRC is Human Rights Campaign. Here's the crazy part. You ready for this?
Yeah.
They got started in '84. You know who funds Human Rights Campaign?
George Soros.
It's funded by Open Society Foundation.
Okay.
Do you know who runs Open Society Foundation?
George Soros.
George Soros.
Oh, so yeah, there we go.
Yeah, literally. And they come to your company and they measure the score. Only 20 companies have a perfect score of 100. And they'll come back and say, here's what you need to do to improve. They have a whole structure, by the way. Workforce protection, 5 points possible. No discrimination.
This is called the woke rating?
Yeah, it's called the woke rating. You've not seen this?
No.
Yeah, it's called the woke rating. Rob,
That's not a joke, though?
This is as sincere as real as it gets. Rob, I'm going to send this to your computer. If you want to show this, Rob, iPhone, or I'm going to send it to your iPhone just to show this, and then we'll wrap up on this topic here. No, this is exactly how they are scoring different companies' workforce protection. That gives you 5 points. Inclusive benefits, 50 points. Criteria here includes providing health care for same-sex couples, supporting an inclusive culture, 25 possible points, including gender-neutral dress codes, and trans-inclusive restroom facilities policies. Number 4 is corporate social responsibility. You get 20 points. Marketing or advertising to LGBTQ consumers, which include Nike and Bud Light's use of transgender spokesperson Dylan Mulvaney. That's crazy. And then number 5 is responsible citizenship. 25 points deducted if a company gives money to organizations whose primary mission includes advocacy against LGBTQ organizations, which is not defined, but could include Christian groups.
Wow.
Any final thoughts on this, Tulsi? I'll give you the floor if you got anything.
I want to show the way things used to be just a few years ago. Did you see the Levi's skit on SNL? The
about the moms?
About
Which
the
one?
pants.
Yeah, mom pants?
Yes, the mom pants.
Oh, yeah. Great skit. I don't know if we're allowed to play it, though. Because if it's SNL, I might take it down.
All right. Anyway.
About like, hey, we're moms.
Yeah.
We wear mom pants.
Well, and it was all about gender neutral. It was really pointing out the farce of everything that you just talked about. Just 5 years ago, SNL made a great skit.
5 years ago.
5 years ago, SNL made a great skit about it, making fun of Levi's shapeless, genderless pants. And rightly so.
Yeah.
Mom pants. I got to go see the clip.
Last question on this topic. I just want to ask you a question about just normal, old school, traditional women, you know? Yeah. This is a political question, but, yourself, you look at Kamala Harris, current VP, Hillary Clinton, almost president. A lot of people say AOC could potentially be a candidate in a handful of years, whether you like her or not. There's other women that have run recently, Carly Fiorina. A lot of people are, advocates of Marjorie Taylor Greene, what have you. How ready do you think America is for a female president now?
I think America is ready for the right woman president. Some of the, I think it's wrong to assume, and this has been one of the insulting things that I've experienced even from within the Democratic Party, is that they assume this sounds ironic saying this now, that they have reduced women to our biological parts to say, well, if you're a woman, you have to support women. That was the whole argument with Hillary Clinton, right? For me, I didn't support her. And literally, I was asked by some of the most powerful women and influential women in the country, how dare you, as a woman, not support this other woman? And my response was, how dare you reduce me to my biological parts and think that I don't have my own brain, my own mind, my own opinions and views? And yet, where are we today now? They deny this biological objective truth that there is such a thing as a woman at all. It's just madness.
Tulsi, I got a text message.
So it's the right person, whether it be a man or a woman. Yes, absolutely. I think we're looking for the right person.
I think we're ready for the right. I don't think we're not. Tulsi, I got a text message. Someone's asking for a referral. If a potential candidate is looking for potential VP, would you entertain the idea? Someone's asking for a referral.
I would entertain the idea on the basis of whether or not I would be able to have an impact, a very real impact on defending our country, both our freedom and our security and our future.
I think you would be one hell of a VP. That would be, and listen, I think you'd be one hell of a, whatever you choose to do, you're a leader. But that would be some wild, if that were to happen, the draw on who would be attracted to that person as a VP, oh my God. Like, check, and a true believer and a backbone and willing to go against establishment. I kind of like a lot of that stuff. Well, thank you for that. The person is thankful for your answer as well. It's very good to know.
Are you saying that, she has your endorsement? That's
I have her endorsement as a human. She has my endorsement as a human being. I think she's very necessary. But gang,
thank you.
If you enjoyed this as much as we did, we want you to go subscribe to both her channels. One is the YouTube one, link is below, as well as her Rumble one, the link is below. In description, Rob, let's put it in description, comment, chat, all of it, as well as the link to her website. You can go to TulsiGabbard.com. Once again, TulsiGabbard.com to get that done. And then Adam has got his event coming up with Fresh and Fit that we're doing at the live event. If you want to know more details about this, to get registered for that as well, text the word SOSCAST. SOSCAST, SOSCAST to 310-340-1132. Once again, 310-340-1132 to get intel about that. It's going to be himself, Fresh and Fit, and a bunch of girls to debate and argue about the conversations of red pill, men, women. They're going to be talking a lot of smack if you want to be entertained. It's going to be Friday, June 2nd at 5990 Live. Again, text the word SOSCAST to 310-340-1132. Tulsi, you're the
Gentlemen,
bomb. This was amazing.
You're the bomb.
So good to see you.
The good kind of bomb.
Yes.
Okay, good.
We are looking forward to doing it again very soon.
Yeah, look forward to it. Thank you.
Take care. Take care, everybody. Have a great
Aloha.
weekend. Bye-bye.